Hola a todos, welcome back to Metafit Metamind Podcast, a podcast in which speakers, leaders, entrepreneurs, and influencers come in and share their journey on how they've gotten to this place in their life while also normalizing those conversations between mental and physical health and wellness. I am Carla Rodriguez, your coach and trainer of NLP and host of this podcast, and I created this space to remind you to raise your voice and share your story. And as your guide, I am here to create a pathway to let go of all those limiting chains behind and use this platform to empower and create awareness, purpose, and expansion in your life. You can follow us on Instagram at Metafit Metamind Podcast, or you can follow me at Coach Carlita. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Hey, welcome to another episode of Metafit Metamind Podcast, and I'm so excited that you are here because this week is special because I'm dropping back-to-back episodes. I've honestly had some incredible conversations lately, and I just couldn't wait to get these conversations and stories out. I've had some really cool people on, and over the next couple of weeks, you'll probably see me releasing maybe hopefully 2 episodes at a time, or maybe one this week, one the next. I haven't decided yet, but I do know that this week you're getting 2, okay? Because I want you to hear these stories. Like I said, they're like too good to not share. I just want to get these messages from these powerful people out there. Now, let's start with this, a quick update. We just had our work circle experience this past weekend, and it was so much fun. Whoa, like it's always transformative and full of learning, and it was just powerful. There's definitely some more of these coming, so just, be on the lookout for future events that happen in person and future, hopefully, online. And for you, if you've been following Women Without Limits movement, you know that I'm a board chair, something that's really exciting for me with Women Without Limits movement, right, that I'm part of. And something exciting is happening later this year. We're hosting a summit here in Austin, Texas, in person. Should be the last quarter of this year, so I'm going to be sharing all those details soon, but I'm honestly truly honored, grateful, and excited to be part of this vision that Ashton has created. I'm going to say it again, she's just amazing. She's always someone who gives me so much learning and growth opportunities, so it's just really cool. So, more on the personal side, we're still in the thick of potty training, now 20-month-old, but really our current challenge is bedtime, like getting him to sleep and actually stay asleep. It's a work in progress because for most of his infancy, we co-slept, which I loved, but now we have to stop that habit, you could say, and teach him to start to independent sleep. And of course, like I miss him if I put him down on his own, so we're still in all of that. We're in the middle of it. I feel like I don't know where my sleep is at a lot of times. And when he co-sleeps with us, he sleeps great, but it's when he sleeps away from us, that's when it gets broken. So wish me luck. If you have any advice, let me know because I'll gladly accept it. And of course, we're still in full planning mode for our future goals, our travels, in about 2 years, maybe a little less than that. We're heading out into the world, right? To homeschool, to explore, to vacation, to keep building this podcast, the academy, opportunities for speaking and everything that's growing in this system, right? As a family and for what we're creating here. So those are quick updates for this week. So let's get into this episode's guest. I was so excited to speak with this amazing person, this human being who I thought I had a vision of something, and then I get to speak with him, and it was just like really cool. So I got to speak with Matt Drago. He's actually my first actor on the podcast, which makes this episode so much fun, and like I kind of geeked out, I'll admit, okay? He's such a genuine, humble human being, sometimes we have these ideas, like I said, this vision of what actors, actresses, famous people might be like. But when you sit down and really talk to someone like Matt, you're reminded that at the end of the day, they are storytellers with powerful journeys too. And so he talks about how he knew he wanted to be an actor, where he grew up, and now the new film that he starred in called Somewhere in Montana. He'll share way more about that. What he plays a West Coast director in conflict with a Montana rancher. It's like very emotional. And so he opens up about his path, his love for all of this and storytelling. So, and what it really takes to follow your passion in that industry, right? So I'm excited for you to listen to this episode. So let's get into it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here at Metafit Metamind podcast. I'm so excited because I kind of am like a little shocked that I get to, in a way, maybe I'm getting to speak and have a conversation with a celebrity that I've never had before. So thank you so much, Matt, for being here.
Carla, thank you so much for having me on your show today. This is going to be a blast.
Yeah. So, there's so many questions that I can ask you about how you've gotten in the industry. But before we even get to that, the first question I love to ask whoever comes here, right? And however much you want to share, of course, is who is Matt?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, honestly, I really was. I was that kid growing up that always knew what he wanted to do. I felt like there was power in telling stories. And for me, just the human experience of being able to, just dive deep into character development and learning more about myself while learning more about the world in the same breath was always something that really appealed to me. So I felt like from an early age, like I just was your, typical actor kid. And
That's so
that
cool.
really, yeah.
You like were able to like have tears just on command kind of thing?
I think I was always really in touch with my emotions,
Yeah.
however that came about. And then, as you grow up and you're around a lot of great mentors, you learn a little bit more about the craft of acting and
Yeah.
kind of how to get there is what you're asking, in terms
Yeah.
of, your emotions and how to be in touch with them a little bit
Mm.
more and how to access them, but how to use them, how to control them a little bit more, or let them go, depending on what the scene is about or the character is about. So
Yeah.
I think that as you just kind of grow up and you're around a lot of people that like really just kind of chip away on what kind of actor you're going to be and what kind of
Hmm.
stories you're going to tell. You pick up little tools, little nuggets along the way, and that becomes part of your process.
That's so cool that you've always known who this Matt was and is going to be or has been, right? Because a lot of us tend to, I'm like, oh, who am I or who am I going to be and what do I want to do? I feel like I had so many career changes of what I wanted to do in my life. And even growing, like, even at 27, I finally settled on this, not even settled, but like, hey, I found my purpose and my passion, right? So for you, that journey, what was like that maybe like a big chapter turn for you that has brought you to here today?
I think the big chapter for me was, and I say moving back home because
Mm,
I've always been a grandma's boy at heart. And
mm,
my mom and dad, while they're both originally from New York City, moved to Virginia, and that's where I grew up. And so I feel like moving back to New York City, going to college in New York City, really embracing the city, being around my people, early and often, all the time,
yeah.
for those formative years was definitely a big chapter in my life where I just was really able to kind of dive deep on the work that it was going to take to
Mm-hmm.
achieve what I wanted to do in my life. And, I really did. I felt like I was always that kid that was, asking questions and curious and, well, who are you teaching? Who are you
Mm-hmm.
learning from? Who's your teacher? Who's your mentor? Should I do this? Should I do this? And I did. I just, I felt like because I had a safe home in a big city to come home to every night with my grandmother,
Mm,
who was a lifelong New Yorker. I just felt like I was able to give myself the freedom to really take it all in. And through that, I was spending days at Actors Equity. For your listeners, that's the Broadway Union, for Broadway actors, where you can go and really spend the whole day and just audition if you want to.
yeah.
Bring your equity card, or you don't even need an equity card. Even before I had an equity card, I would, go and just be around my people. And sometimes I wouldn't even get to audition, but I'd meet people.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's always been about relationships for me. The more that you can just connect with people on a deep level, you never know when that's someone that you meet down the road a little bit. So I always felt like for me, it was New York was just the time in my life where I really just got to completely open up to what it was going to look like and what my future was going to be and what the path of the actor was going to be and what it was going to look like for me, and just really just embracing all parts of it.
Yeah, so you were really immersed in it, completely.
Yeah.
And the cool thing that you just said is that you still had home and your grandma, and like that, knowing like in your heart that that was the place for you to know that that's safe, and hey, I can be here in the city doing other things, maybe getting an audition, maybe not. And so that process of you auditioning, because in this podcast I do talk mental health, physical health, how that plays out in your life. And so through that process though, like what kind of mindset do you have to have in order to keep going to these auditions, right? To keep trying and trying, like what goes on in Matt's mind?
Yeah, you have to remain joyful at all times. I really do mean that. Like, you have to just be joyful about what you're doing and loving what you're doing. I mean, if you have a dream, but you're not in love with that dream, maybe it's not your dream, And I think that that's something that always really resonated with me, is that, like, acting has brought me so much joy in my life because it's given me opportunities to, like I say, dive deep into my own humanity and really meet people that I align with on, a cosmic spiritual level, whatever you want to call it. And so I feel like it's always been something for me that brings me so much joy that I really just embrace that and let the journey take me where it's going to go.
I love that you saying that cosmic journey, and that, because most people don't normally see me and are like, oh, she's like a woo person, but I'm into all that, right? But that spiritual space for you, what do you tend to do for yourself during these processes, even playing these characters? Because I would imagine that when you're playing these characters, you're in the character, right? That is the character that you are. So what is it that you have to do to come back to Matt? Is there like a mantra or some kind of something that you do like before or after?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that for me, since I have dove deep into method acting of late, it just kind of aligns with kind of how I like to build a character, is I like to kind of throw myself into it and see what sticks. I really did luck out in many ways with this character in Somewhere in Montana with Fabian Verdugo, because I saw a lot of myself in him and vice versa. And so I was able to just kind of like merge the two. In answer to your question, I think you have to ground yourself in both. You have to ground yourself in the character. And you have to ground yourself as Matt and and who you are. Yeah. And I think that's done by, just having conversations outside of the character. So much of acting and so much of being on set is a lot of downtime, right? Yeah. And so I think I really found myself getting to know Grant McTavish and getting to know Michelle Hurd and getting to know a lot of my fellow actors and crew members and my director, Brandon Smith, and learning from the producers on set, Eden Matson and Joe Borden, and just having those conversations that were really outside of the scope of the film. Yeah. Talking to them about like their lives and their families and what they had going on. And I think when you can do that, you are grounding yourself in both. That way you don't, quote unquote, lose yourself. But I do think that, any good method actor, I mean, method acting gets a bad rep to some, but that's because you hear kind of about the horror stories of method acting. Typically that is sort of a bastardized version of method acting. Method acting is really just about like letting yourself free fall into the character and bringing your unique elements of yourself into that character. And it does take a lot of work because, again, you are really building a foundation that is kind of like in alignment with your own foundation of your life. And it works with some characters, but it doesn't work with all characters. And I think that's kind of where, for me, I was so lucky in New York City, my formative years, to have, Terry Schreiber, who I studied with, who became like a grandfather to me, who was actually Edward Norton's coach and has coached a lot of different great actors over the years. And, he just... he gave you all the tools. That's what I loved about Terry. You know,
Yeah.
he knew all the tools. He let you experience them. He let you play around with them, and he kind of let you cherry pick as to what would work for you. And I think in my process and my development, I've learned that some tools work for some characters, but not all characters.
Yeah.
So I feel like for Fabian, like it made sense as I started really diving into the character, working with my acting teacher. You know, he even said, like, I think you can start forgetting the name Fabian and really start to be Matt, because the two had become kind of one.
Oh,
And I really did do so much of the work on the character because I like to write a lot of backstories. I like to journal about my characters because, again, so much about acting is behavioral. If you're talking to me right now or you're talking to Fabian Verdugo, you're talking to really two different people because, you know, Fabian's past is different than mine. His life events are different than mine. But we have a lot of the core principles that, you know, kind of bridge the gap between the two of us. And I think that's where I thought that that method acting really made the most sense, the Strasberg technique, as it's known too.
Okay.
So I feel like for me, it's always just you know, taking the character in, learning as much as you can, figuring out what process to adopt to that character. And then once you've done all of this work, and I mean, I always say actors should do all of their work in pre-production. You know, that's your time to really just kind of study the character, figure out what choices you're going to make. You let it all go because then you're around other actors that have also done that. And that's really, honestly, when you get to the good part, Carla, is that you just kind of start playing, you know, like Shakespeare says, like you're a player, right? And so you're working off of, you know, what they're giving you in that moment. And I think that that really is truly what acting is doing all of the work to essentially prepare you for that moment, but then really learning. And this is something that I actually had to learn in college as well, because I always kind of wanted to be the acting student. You know, I always wanted to show people how much work I did. You have to dare to fail. You have to dare to fail. You have to dare to be messy. You have to dare to not be perfect. And I think that's really when great acting comes about, is when you are committed to the work, when you do the work, but then you let it all go and you just enjoy the moment.
Yeah. So when did it hit you that, hey, it's okay, not necessarily okay, but I can dare to fail? Like, when did that first hit you? Because you wanted to be this a top student, right? This go-getter. You're doing all the things. So what was that moment for you?
Yeah, I think honestly it was a moment in college where I had just worked so hard to impress a couple people. I was also in the mindset where, you know, I had a pretty, you know, we'll say successful agent at the time that I was really trying to impress. And none of it was about me or about my art or about my practice. It was all about other people. It was all about impressing them. And there was a time in college, I booked an international tour actually for West Side Story,
So
and
cool.
I missed a semester of college. And I still wanted to graduate on time. My grandma really wanted me to graduate, you know, and so that was really important to her. So it was really important to me. So I came back, but I really wanted to graduate on time. So I was doing like a lot of extra classes out of college to like get, you know, extra credits and things like that. But it was at that point where I still tried to get the BFA program instead of the BA program, and it just wasn't working out. It was going to have to take me a whole extra year to do that, and I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to move on with my life at that point.
Yeah.
So I felt like at that point, I just really did, you know, because I was trying to impress a couple acting teachers, and, you know, outside of college, I was auditioning, and I would go into these auditions, Carla, and I would be like, oh, I have to book this for so-and-so. And that's the silliest thing that you can do as like an artist, is I have to quote unquote do this for somebody else. Like it should be your practice. Like, you know, our agents and managers are the business side, but like you're the creative side. They should want you to stay in your lane. You should never feel obligated to impress them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
I feel
I
like
felt
that
like
can definitely even just connect outside of the auditioning space, just in general, us doing things for us. So you doing this for Matt versus somebody else, you know, because then it's the way that I would see this is, oh, I'm doing this for someone else, but how does that actually, does that excite me? Does that feel good? Like, you know, and so I think that's so great that you're saying that.
You have to do it for yourself. It has to bring you joy first and foremost. And I think it was a moment of reckoning in my life where I started to I think it was probably a couple conversations I had with people that had been a little bit further along, and probably one of them said, like, Matt, you're the actor, or however they said it, you know, you're this is your art, you know. Maybe that's another one that rang in my head, but it kind of snapped me out of this ability. And I think honestly, even an acting teacher at college said, like, you know, I think he said in a way, and I kind of understood what he was saying. He's like, you know, you're a real A actor student. And the way that he said it kind of sounded like it wasn't a compliment. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, and I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on your show.
Yes,
but
yes, you are.
he literally looked at me in that moment and he said, you're allowed to fuck up, you know? Yeah. And like, he meant it very lovingly. Like, he said, you're allowed to fuck up. And like, and I think it really just kind of in that moment, like, unlocked something in me where I was like, okay, like, I can fuck up. Great. Well, this is awesome. Now I can.
You really felt that though.
Then I felt it, and I was just kind of like, I ran with that because it really did. It meant that I could take more chances in auditions. I could dare to be bad, whatever that means. Because again, it's a subjective art, right? So it's like, you know, you talking to me today, we're connecting. You might see me in a movie and be like, oh, wow, he's so cool. He loves what he does, you know, but not everybody's going to love every performance that I do. Some people are going to love parts of it. Some people are not going to love parts of it. We understand that this is a game we play as actors that is unlike being on a field of play or a basketball court, or, you know, one where there's stats involved, you know. So we understand that this is a different type of game, but we have to play it within the rules that we give ourselves. And there's freedom in that. And once you find the freedom in really kind of guiding yourself and understanding that you can fuck up, it's just empowering. And it really does. I think it really creates this mentality around you where you really start to feel like you are an actor and an artist.
My internet or your internet. So give me 1 minute here.
Oh, sure.
Are you back? Am I back?
I'm back.
Okay. Something happened that I don't know what was going on.
No worries.
But yeah, no, but I hear you, like, like the whole thing about that hitting you and that was what you felt at that moment. It's like it seems like before that, it's like you were just bullshitting, you know, and you were just doing things for somebody else, and it wasn't yours. And like whatever belief that was there, it just kind of was like, oh, this is me.
I was trying to be good at it. Right, exactly.
Versus, and people could feel that, you know, people can feel that where they feel the acting, they feel even the true person, if you're being honest with somebody. And I know that I've seen like those like mini dramas that aren't like super great, right? But I appreciate the actors. And I'm like, oh, this just doesn't feel like, you know, so, I know there's something missing there, right? That there's some kind of something that's, they're acting for something else or for somebody else versus for themselves, you know, and really feeling into that character. Because normally I'll cry. If somebody makes me cry in a movie, I am the crier. I'm the one that feels the things, right? And so I love it when somebody like just, even in general, in real person, makes me feel something. And so when someone tells me, you're an A actor, but they tell me in a tone that I'm like, oh, that did not feel good, you know, I actually appreciate that.
Yeah, it meant a lot to me because he meant it like to snap me out of it. Like his tone was very honest. But he loves me, you know, and we still keep in touch because
it's like that tough love.
It was tough love. And it unlocked something in me because it was sort of like a call to action of like, do you want to be an A actor? Are you in acting so that you can get a 100% on your test?
Exactly.
And
Oh,
and
yes.
it is. It's like, an artist like looking at a canvas. It's like, the greats, Picasso. I mean, look at like, Monet, like these extravagant artists, throughout time. That they didn't come to that blank canvas and say, okay, I'm going to exactly do this and this and this. They just let their imaginations go
And they didn't do it for
see
somebody
what that
else
found.
either.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and so
100%.
through this journey right now, I was watching the trailer again of somewhere in Montana. So, in this movie, do you want to talk a little bit about it, or like, so we can start to talk about that? Because I want people to get excited about this. I want to watch it as soon as I can watch it. Because I was looking at it, and even from the trailer, I felt something. I was like, "There's gonna be some like real stuff here, right?" And you brought Matt into this, like you said. So,
Yeah.
what is Somewhere in Montana?
It's a story of the times, It's a big story, written and directed by Brandon Smith, and he wrote much of himself into the two lead characters of the film. You've got John Alexander, played by my
Mm-hmm.
friend Graham McTavish, who is this Montana rancher who is somebody that's carried on this generational legacy
Mm-hmm.
of this cattle ranch in Montana. And then you have Fabian Verdugo, played by me, who is this West Coast director, and his dream and his legacy is in film, is in
Mm-hmm.
leaving behind a couple good stories while he's on this planet. And what Brandon does so eloquently is he puts them in a position where uniquely they need each other. And I think that's the key element, because we are basically thrust onto each other. I need a location for my last film
Mm-hmm.
in somewhere in Montana, and he needs money from the film because his ranch is on life support, and so
Yeah.
he really really needs the money from the film, or he's going to have to close something that has been in his family for generations. And thinking about how painful that would be, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
get asked this question all the time. Well, why did it have to be that location? Well, I mean, if you've ever been around a filmmaker, I mean, look at like the great Francis Ford Coppola with like The Godfathers, for instance. I mean, when he started scouting locations, I mean, everything had to be perfect. Like he knew whether that feeling of the wedding scene was exactly where the family needed to live, the
Mm-hmm.
types of people that he felt like would be there, that just the imagery of it like had to be so perfect for him. And
Yeah.
so I think that was a really, really big thing for Fabian, is that he needed to find this perfect location because this was a legacy piece for him. And so the two of them literally come together, and it starts like out very poorly because these are two people that again would never find themselves in the same room together. And because of that, they judge each other. And I think what Brandon does so well in this film is he writes both lead characters as the protagonists and antagonists of the same story. And isn't that so true in life that,
Yeah.
we can be good people, but sometimes we antagonize each other, and sometimes we don't even realize why we're doing it in the
Yeah.
moment. And so I think there's instant judgment because these are two people that really just antagonize each other. They're people that don't get each other. They're people
Mm-hmm.
that come from different backgrounds, whether it's socially or politically or religiously. And so I think it just really creates this dissonance right off the bat where they don't get each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so it looks like, it's going to go down this downward spiral where both sides are going to lose. And I think such is life, and I mean, I'm a I'm a big male feminist. I'll just go
Yeah.
ahead and say that on your show. Is that it's the two women
Yeah.
on either side. Kat, played by my friend Michelle Hurd,
Mm-hmm.
who plays the producer, and Kaylee Macchio, who plays Lainey, who's John's daughter, that really guide a path for us to come forward together and to understand each other a little bit more. And there are definitely some supporting characters that really guide these two forces because Brandon, to his credit, wrote both of us as alpha males. Like we are alphas. Like we
That's
are going.
exactly what I was gonna say. Like from the trailer, you can tell that these are two leading men
Yeah.
who are like leading their pack, right? He leads his family and his home, right? His what do you call it? His His ranch, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there comes a director, a filmmaker coming into his place, into his space, who's leading something that's really important. And so, yeah, I get how there's like a clash of powers here a little bit.
Because we both care so much, and I think that's what really is a great element too. I mean, like this film goes into legacy, but it also goes into mutual respect. And you talk about family, right? Mm-hmm. It goes into family in that Fabian, his family is his cast and crew. Those are the people that he is there to protect, that he's there to serve, that he's there to tell a great story with. These are the people that like he cares about. So if anybody on his set is threatened, he takes that as a personal attack because that's his job. So I always say with Fabian specifically, he's one of those characters that might look like a diva on the outside, but the reality is he is somebody that really will go down with his own ship. Like he cares more about others than he cares about himself. And so I think that is a big part of the dynamic of this film, is that they both really do. They just care. They just care about different things. Mm-hmm. And so I think that when they start to really hear each other out and they start to understand each other a little bit more, they really get to the point where there's a path forward that they can forge together to really just kind of come to at least an understanding. Yeah, so I mean, at this point, like I think it's just a story that really resonates with kind of the times that we're in, and I think it's a story that we can all glean from right now.
And and you kind of hinted it a little bit too, is like sometimes the females are needed to kind of help guide and like calm the situation down, because yes, we can be fiery sometimes, but we have
but
that
we need
other
you.
Side. We have the side of empathy, which is so important. And I think when just from people that I know, and my husband being kind of an alpha male too, there is like this very masculine energy, and so when you bring in someone else, someone that you're taking care of, it's understandable, and it's cool to have, from my perspective, maybe I'm biased again, is that to have us to be the mediators in a way, right? And just, hey, let's what are they really asking? What are they really wanting? What is the actual goal here? And then let's get to that goal of you taking care of your ranch and your property and all of this, and you leaving your legacy, and this being a memorable movie that you wanted to make. And for you, right, Matt, is you being the director in that movie. How was that experience? And also, like, for you, how does that create like this memorable experience playing that role too?
I think it's honestly kind of going back to just taking the method approach, is like I really did feel like so much of Fabian I got. He's the first character that I ever truly fell in love with. And I think in falling in love with him, I really didn't want to lose parts of him, because I felt like he taught me so much about myself and so much about not only my love for storytelling, but my love of collaboration. Fabian's a collaborator. He loves his people. He loves the masters of craft that are around him to create a good story. Like, these are people that, he desires to be around early and often in his life. Yeah. And I think because of that, I think it's one of those characters that has just made such a big impact on me that I want to do that in my own life. I want to produce my own stories. And my
right,
dog
doggy.
Buffy wants to. Yeah.
We go with it.
Yeah, right. We have to go with
I'm
it.
not muting that.
Good. You should. That's Buffy, my dog, Buffy Ann Drago. Her initials are bad. Buffy Ann Drago.
She wants to be heard bad.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna let her out.
All right.
Give me a second. You shouldn't
pause.
edit that out. That's pretty funny. Pause. That's right. Pause. All right. You wanna get out? Oh, dogs. What kind of dog do you have? You have a dog, right?
I have a Doberman.
Okay. Yeah, she's the opposite of that. She's like, 12 and a half pounds, but
yeah. But he actually is more like a little dog. Like, I don't know. He's supposed to be a guard dog, but it doesn't really happen. He's more like timid, super cool with my kid. My kid will like get on him like if he was a horse, mess with his ears, which I'm actually glad he's like this. But yeah,
cute. Dogs are the best. They really are.
I know. Yeah. They're like I've told my husband, I'm like, he's like my emotional support animal.
Absolutely. Even when
And
they're
so,
yelling at you when you're on a
I know.
podcast.
Yeah. It's like, pay me some attention, please.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it is too.
Yep. Which
But
actually, talking about support,
yeah.
how important has that been in your life? Having support, for emotionally, mentally, even your mentors or your family, how important has that been?
It's everything. I mean, I think you really have to, when I say find your tribe, find your people, it's the people that really are going to be there for you in the lowest moments. Because, I mean, it is a, an unknown journey, an unknown path that you take as an actor. And so I think because of that, you have to find ways to just find relationships that you value and people that you value in your life that align with you, whether that be, spiritually or cosmically, right? Because we've got the cosmic connection is that you have to find people that will lift you up when things aren't going 100% your way. And I mean, the one thing is, I think you learn over time how to deal with quote unquote rejection. That's a big thing in the acting industry that like people outside of it say. I look at it a little bit differently now. And I think this is just kind of my evolution as an actor is that when I get an audition, like Carla, I look at that as a win. Like I look at it as an opportunity to act, an opportunity to bring myself to a character, to make some choices, to have some fun, to find that childlike joy. And again, the tough part about acting is once you put yourself on tape for something, you have to let it go and move on to the next thing. But I think that for Somewhere in Montana specifically, I really, really did feel very connected to this story. I felt like it was a story that was bigger than myself, and I had read the script 3 times before I even, put myself on tape for it. So I think it was that specific thing that drew me to the director and the producer, because I think they really understood early on how curious I was about the story, whether I was a part of it or not. It was something that I think drew me to them, and I do feel that way for any artist out there, or really anybody in life, is that when you have joy for something and you truly love it, and you can just appreciate your part of it, which my part at that point was to just put myself on tape and audition and let it go. I think it really creates like a mentality for you to become like a beacon of light for people that, will be a little bit more attracted to you because they'll understand, A, the work that you're willing to put into it, B, the commitment, and C, like just that like collaborative spirit. Because again, being an actor is about serving the material. It's about serving, the writer and the director. And so I think when you're serving those people and you take like joy in serving the material and collaborating with your fellow actors, there's nothing better than that.
Man, that's so important to remember, is that it's an opportunity. It's like growth for you. And after you tape yourself, do you get feedback from the directors or who you're trying out for, or is it more you review these yourself and then you give yourself feedback? Like how does that process work for you?
I mean, I think that for me, I have gotten to the point now where if I feel like I, have done my job as an actor in that moment with the audition, and I feel like I've done what I feel like my take is on the character, that's at the point where I let it go. I mean, there are some actors that will tape themselves 25 times and then pick,
Wow.
take 17, and send that along. I think I really do try to do it as few times as possible, as long as there's like, no sound issues, no dog barking in the background. I try, well, that happens, you know what I mean? So it's like if there's no technical issues, I think that I look at the take and I clearly understand that this is something that I feel like is my take on the character. Like if you were to cast me, if you're the director or the writer or the producer, like this is what I'm going to give you. This is what you should expect. And then again, that is something that I can hang my hat on because I've done my job.
That's cool.
Speaking
of,
like, can you hear my dog?
I could hear
you
him
can
a
hear.
little
Okay, I'm going to close her out. She's bad today. Sorry.
No worries.
She's really bad. All right, then you shouldn't be able to hear her. Hopefully.
That's hilarious.
I've got the thick door as like the fail safe if I ever need to.
That's hilarious. No, I mean, I have a baby, so sometimes my house will be loud. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Or I'm
Yeah.
coaching or something, and my clients are like, oh, I can hear your baby. I'm like, I'm sorry. They're like, it's
It is what it
okay.
is. Yep.
It is what it is.
It is
And
what
I
it
think,
is.
I think, I think with your tapes, it is what it is, right? You have to trust your gut and your
Yeah.
intuition,
Yeah.
to be like, all right, here we go.
I think that really comes in time too, because again, it's about your trust level in your own practice and your own process, right? And I think that only comes with reps. I think it only comes with doing it for a long amount of time. And you have to remember, I've been doing this my whole life. Like I've been acting my whole life. And I think that's one thing that I really appreciated about Michelle Hurd's husband, Garrett Dillahunt, recently,
Mm-hmm.
because the quote unquote, like I'm the unknown actor. This is my big break, and it's true. I am an unknown actor for the most part, but it's my big break, and but it doesn't mean that the way he said it is, he looked at me at one point and he's like, but you've been acting your whole life, and
Yeah.
it's true. It's like just because like I haven't gotten a break, or it doesn't mean that I'm any less professional, or that I haven't studied or learned the craft by some great acting teachers. And for someone who has had that much success to give me that in that moment, when we're sitting next to each other, watching a screening of the film, it meant so much to me. And these are the people, again, it goes back to that you need to align yourself with, because those are the people that are gonna give you those little nuggets. And Michelle has given me a lot. I call her my big sister. I mean,
Aw.
she's like, she is just I don't have enough amazing things to say about her. She's just a phenomenal spirit human
Yeah.
being. Is that they give you so much space. And I say this about actors all the time too. Like actors are some of the most selfless people that you'll ever meet in your life, because they almost are trained to hold space for each other,
Yeah.
and to hold emotional space is such a gift that a lot of people can't do or refuse to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I love my creatives so much, is because they'll give you that like love when you need it. They'll say the things that you need to hear when you need it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just coming from a positive place. And so just to have those types of people outside of somewhere in Montana that
Yeah.
are now part of my life, that are now part of my family,
Yeah.
is what I say all the time, is that, I feel like I've already won with this film because of the people that I've, gained, the relationships that I've gained, because these are people that care about me. I mean, Graham checked in on me,
Yeah.
a month and a half ago when we were having the fires up here. He
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I was okay. He's the first person in my life, at least, that's ever called me mate, which is a sign of, Scottish camaraderie,
Nice.
and it was as he was getting into the car, like leaving set for the last time, he said, I'll see you, mate. And it meant a
Aw.
lot to me, because it was a camaraderie of, we had told a great story together. We had done the work together, and we spent so much time. Like, again, I say this all the time, but every set's different.
Mhm.
Brandon Smith created this ecosystem with space in the schedule where we could really get to know each other. The actors and the crew, I say the cast and crew were interchangeable. I mean, we were all friends, hanging out, taking hikes together, going to dinners together, getting our breakfast together, going boating together, like whatever it was. And it really did kind of spark this energy around set that I think really created this dynamic of what we were doing that translated on screen was all of
Yeah.
the relationships that we were created
Yeah. Because
off
there was
screen.
unity, seems like.
It was this feeling very early on that we were a family and we were telling a story that was bigger than all of us. And it
Yeah.
really, like, you could feel that, like, in the final cut of the film, like, and it was just really special to be a
I
part
love
of.
that. I love that you had that from the beginning, and to be able to work in spaces like that is just the best, when you're like, "Hey, you are my people, you are my people." And just have that, like you said, that family within that workspace, which is really amazing. So let me ask you this. Other than somewhere in Montana, because I know this one's the big break right now, right? Is there something that you're excited that's coming for Matt, or anything that we should be on the lookout? What are you doing next for you that's like, yes, that is next for me?
Well, the auditions are picking up finally. I mean, you have to remember that, we
Yeah.
started this year in Los Angeles with the worst natural disaster
Yeah.
of our history.
Are you in
And
LA?
Yeah, I'm in LA.
Oh shoot, I didn't ask you that
Yeah.
last time.
Yeah, so I'm in LA, and I actually have been close to two of the fires, the one up in Castaic and then the one
Yeah.
in Silmar were really close to me. And so I mean that started out the year.
Mm-hmm.
Last year we had multiple strikes for the first time, in our history, and
Yeah.
there's been a lot of shifting in our industry with AI and with
Mm-hmm.
streaming platforms and how to monetize that. So
Yeah.
it's been difficult, and
Yeah.
I think that's why for me right now, things are picking up again. Again, your reps, and now you look at them in a different capacity.
Yeah.
I just signed on with some new reps, Richard John Martin over at Ignite Talent Management, Tanya Kleckner at HRA, who's like a pitch queen. She's incredible. And so, and I actually have agents outside of LA in different
Mm-hmm.
pockets of the country too. Like I have
Cool.
a Utah agent, Amber
Yeah.
Evans over at Stars Talent Studios, and I've got an Atlanta agent and a Montana agent. So I
Ever
have
gonna come to
people.
Texas?
Yeah, well, you know what? I actually am looking for a Texas agent right now. I
Yeah.
actually might sign with a Texas agent because there are a lot of things. Where are you in Texas?
In Austin.
Oh, you're in Austin. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, are you going to South by Southwest
I
this week?
should be. I'm actually. I work close to it, so
Cool.
I'm gonna try to check out some of the things if I can.
You should. I have a lot
Yeah.
of friends that are there this week, and I mean,
Yeah.
again, independent films are
Mhm.
so important right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't
Matthew
stress that
McConaughey is
enough.
here, so
Yeah, there you go.
yeah.
There you go. I mean, he's the best. I mean, like
Yeah.
again, like these film festivals are celebrations of, storytelling. And
Yeah.
and I say this all the time, like acting is outward facing, and so a lot of people on the outside in see the red carpets, they see the glitz and glam of it, but the reality is actors get into this for the storytelling. And, who's not going to say no to a nice party? Who's not going to say no to, taking your significant other out for a night on the town, right? So, so I feel like that is something that, like, should be addressed, because it's like these film festivals are opportunities for people to meet up, to collaborate. Because who knows, maybe that producer will be the one that works with that writer, and they met at South by Southwest. It's an opportunity to see how creatively people can align with each other. My wife went to the Independent Spirit Awards this year, for the first
she
time.
asked to?
She is a writer. And
Oh,
so
nice.
that's kind of another part of our chapter together is we have a production company. Her maiden name is Hunter, mine being Drago. So Drago and Hunter makes up Dragon
Nice.
Hunter Productions. So
I
we
love it.
we want to, in the same way that Fabian rubbed off on me and that he wanted to tell big stories about little pockets of the country. That's something that we want to do with our production company, because we feel this need for it right now. We feel the dissonance that we're feeling with these little pockets of the country that feel like they don't have a voice. And we want to give that to them through film. And so I think that that's like, another main goal of what I want to do in my life is
Yeah.
not only wait for the phone to ring, keep putting great auditions out there when it does, but really collaborate with my wife. And again, collaborating with somebody that you love, there's nothing better than that. She's an incredibly talented writer. She's written a few podcasts. She actually won Austin Film Festival's Best Podcast Script 2 years ago. And again,
That's
that was
amazing.
because she was talking to people. And at one point, one of the girls there was like, writing is writing. It doesn't matter whether you're writing a feature, a short. You know what? You should write a podcast. So she, like, for extra credit, actually wrote a podcast, and then she had already cast actors. We cast the actors
So cool.
and edited it so that when she won it the next day, she dropped it for everybody that was
Yeah.
there.
Wifey, you just got a shout out over here.
Of course. I always shout her out because
Yes.
honestly, she's so talented. And I mean, she started acting. She went to NYU Tisch, but when COVID struck, she was like, I have to keep being creative. And, with the world shutting down, she was like, how can I be creative? And for her, it was let me lock myself in a room with my doggy and start writing and just write.
Right.
And
Now you
her
get
ideas,
to collaborate.
and now I get to collaborate. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm more of the producer actor, and she's the writer, but I also kind of want to see if she wants to get into directing too, because
Yeah.
I've found being on set with Brandon that there's just this incredible relationship that comes from being a writer and a director, because then you really start the process from the words and then you get to articulate it to your team. And again, that's like the coolest part about it, is you start to build your team. You start to build your cinematographer, your editor, your gaffers, your lighting design, your sound design. And and then you get to tell a great story together. And that is kind of where I'm at in my life, is that as much as I will obviously keep auditioning, the auditions that'll come my way, is that I'm really, really, I think as much as acting is my first love in life, like I really, truly love collaborating too. And part of collaborating with me is collaborating with her, and for us to be able to bring some great stories to pockets of the country.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so awesome. Congratulations on you both collaborating and on her win. Even though I didn't know about this 2 years ago, that's a huge, huge win. I'm wishing so much success upon both of you, on you, and whatever future movies I see you in and all these things, I'll be like, hey, I interviewed that guy at some point.
That's right. That's right. I'm always around. I'm always around to come back and to tell my next chapter for sure.
Of course.
This has been wonderful.
If people wanted to find you, where do we find you? What's your main platform?
The easiest way, my main platform is Instagram, at Matt Drago, MattDrago, at Matt Drago. From there, you've got my link tree. It's got my actor website, mattdrago.com. It's also got my production company website, dragonhunterproductions.com. And it's also got my IMDb if you want to look up my past and future projects. So give me a follow there, and you'll be in all the know for what's going on in my life and my career.
Awesome. And I didn't tell you this before, but if somebody wanted to learn something from you, what's one thing that you would share with somebody?
Absolutely. Always be learning, and really adopt this principle. The journey is the destination. You have to enjoy being an artist. You can't look for the results in the journey. You have to enjoy the journey. And a lot of times that means like finding balance in your life, right? If you're passionate about something, find other things that you can be passionate outside so you can maintain that passion for, your acting. Because if you're all in all the time, you'll burn yourself out. So, find different things outside, whether it's, watching a football game. For me, I'm a 4th degree black belt in Okinawan Shorin-ryu karate, so I like to do katas, so I grew up in a dojo, so my dad's a sensei actually. And so, karate has always been a big part of who I've been. So find things that you love to keep you balanced, to keep you loving what you love. And again, surround yourself with like that warm blanket of people that like just align with you, that will lift you up, that will never bring you down, and keep being that beacon of light, because when you're that beacon of light, people will find you and you'll find your path on the journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that and for being on here, Matt. I so appreciate you. This was awesome. And I'm excited for everybody to hear this.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Carla. This has been a joyful conversation. I mean, these conversations are part of my journey as well. So thank you so much for having me on your show today.
This was such a fun episode I had with Matt Drago. There are so many things that I personally think I took away. I hope you took away a lot of things, but here are 2 things that I think I learned that really stuck out to me. The first one is I love how Matt talks about how important it is to keep the joy at the center of whatever it is that you're pursuing. Whether it's acting or anything else, that sense of joy and doing it for yourself, not for someone else's approval, is really what keeps you going and makes it sustainable in the long run. For example, I just shared a reel about the fun that we were able to have with Ashton and Roxy at the end of the event after everybody had left, right? Because we were celebrating what we had just created, and that's how people can keep doing what they're doing and pursuing that passion and that either that business, that career, because you have to find the joy in those moments, right? And so always be joyful, because you can have that now. Remember that. The second is this idea that the journey is the destination. That honestly is like, boom, right? It hits. Because he shares that instead of obsessing over the outcome or waiting for things to finally happen, we should just find the enjoyment, the fulfillment in the day-to-day as well, right? In that process, the work, the connections, and all those small moments along the way. And I would add the gratitude in those connections, in the work that you do, in those moments along that way. So those are a few things that I'm like really excited and grateful for. I'm grateful for this podcast. And so remember that there's several events coming. Stay in the lookout and stay tuned for everything that Metafit Metamind is creating. There's some really exciting things, and you'll be one of the first ones to know. If you're in my newsletter, you'll even be the first one to know. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening to this podcast up to this point. I am so grateful always for you to always listen. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe if you are on YouTube. And if you're listening, leave a review. It always helps me out. My name is Carla Rodriguez. This is Metafit Metamind Podcast, where we're having conversations that we would have never had. Until next time.